And coming up on this episode of the Marty Mariner Show, well, I've really been looking forward to having a bit of a chat, a bit of a chinwag, a bit of a conversation with our Central Coast Mariners women's coach, Emily Husband. Yep, we're going to talk to Emily about her earliest footballing memory, about playing, about the early days of coaching, her time in Leeds and Huddersfield, which seems to be a bit of a thing now for our coaches. Wonder if they've got together and shared a few memories. I'm sure they have. We'll ask her about that. How she ended up at Sydney Uni, did a bit more travelling around the globe, back at Sydney Uni, and ultimately back in God's country here on the Central Coast, coaching our women's team underneath the palm trees and underneath the sauce bottles, and watching that cannon go off a few times too, I'm sure, this season. It'll be great to have a catch up with Emily and find out all of the above. And also how we've gone these first couple of games. How does she think the squad is shaping up? And having a bit of a break now until that doubleheader against Brisbane on the 12th, I think it is. Looking forward to that one as well. All of the above will be answered very, very shortly. If you are watching us on YouTube, good to be seen by your eyeballs. Here's looking at you too. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the like button as well. We always love to see that. And join us here as part of the family. And if you're listening now on our podcast platforms, including Spotify, great to be in your eardrums. Great to be on board and have you listening to us as well. All right, let's not keep the boss waiting any longer. She's in the green room, ready to go. Let's get this whole thing started. It's the Marty Mariner Show. And welcome back to the Marty Mariner Show. And as I said in the introduction, someone I couldn't wait to chat to was our Central Coast Mariners women's gaffer, head honcho, boss, Emily Husband. Emily, welcome to the Marty Mariner Show. How are you doing?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Marty. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Mate, I am doing well. Bit starved of women's football at the moment, but we'll cover off on that in a little bit of time. Mate, can you tell me what your earliest footballing memory was?
Probably being jealous of my brother and my dad playing football either in the lounge or in the back garden as a probably young 4 or 5 year old, and wanting to get involved. That is probably my earliest footballing memory. Outside of that, it's probably my first ever game at Ellen Road, and then my first ever training session with a team.
Wow, that was all. I mean, I don't think people in Australia probably appreciate the fact that football in England is played wherever there's a patch of grass, a patch of snow, in a lounge room, a hallway, no matter what. It was make 2 goals and the youngest one sits in goals and the rest of them does the attacking, right?
Yeah, 100%. My mum probably spent half of her life threatening my dad not to break any ornaments, vases, anything else while playing football in the house, because the lounge was the main stadium, like we had 2 perfectly placed lounges for goals, and it would make a perfect little stadium for a 1v1 or a 2v2.
Absolutely. What an all-seater venue as well. How good is that? Never get snowed off or rained off in that. So you just touched quickly on playing. So when did playing the game first start for yourself?
So funny story. I actually went to watch my dad play, and he's over 45s. Sorry, Dad, if I've got that wrong, he'll kill me. Over 45's game, and I was just sat in the car, and typical Yorkshire weather, it was absolutely throwing it down.
Wow.
And my dad's team went off at half time, and my brother turned to me in the car and said, "Should we go for a kick around at half time?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" So out we went, got out of the car, absolutely throwing it down. Me and my brother just running around on the pitch. And there was a lady in a car next to my mum, and she wound her window down, and she kind of went, is that your daughter out there? And my mum was like, oh yeah, she likes playing with a dad and a brother. And she was like, well, I actually have an under 10 girls team I'm trying to recruit girls for. Would she be interested? So yeah, the week after, my mum took me down to into Bradford. I showed up full white Leeds kit with Jimmy number 9 on the back of it, and the rest is history.
Yeah, and away you went. And what position did you start off playing? Where was your part on the field?
I was a centre back most of my career, and then when I went to college, I kind of went out to sort of full back, and then as I've got older, I've gone into sort of holding midfield, which
Right.
I'm sure everybody regrets immediately. I'm an out and out defender, that's for sure.
So as some people tend to work their way back in the thing, you've actually
I'm
done
going
the
forward.
opposite round. Yeah. And when playing wise, when you were playing the game as you were developing and stuff, was coaching always there as a thought for you, or was it no? I'm playing. There's no way would I stand on the sideline and do what they're doing.
Yeah, coaching was something that did come to me pretty early, but it was always something that coincided with me playing. I never ever thought for a second that I would end up probably playing I guess, to pursue coaching. So I actually started coaching when I was about 14, 15. At the same time I was playing, and I was obviously just at that point doing little young kids, and that was probably where my passion really started. And then when I was out at college, I actually was a referee for the 4 years that I was at college, earning extra little bit of money um, on the sideline. And because I actually went to university in South Texas in Brownsville, right on the Mexican border. So I picked up a lot of Spanish swear words during that time.
Handy,
Um,
handy.
and so, yeah, like I think just my passion was always just to be involved in the game in whatever capacity came to me.
Yeah,
And then as I got older and sort of realized my full potential as a player probably wasn't going to be as an elite professional athlete. And even, back then, the game's grown since then, but I knew I wasn't in that top crop. I was sort of just underneath that, and I was okay with that. And that was sort of when I started transitioning into a full-time coaching role.
absolutely. And I know we just mentioned before, and I'm sure I had this conversation with Mark Jackson before about Leeds and Ellen Road, but you've graced the turf at Ellen Road too. What was your memories of that?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I was lucky enough to have played for the women's team at Leeds for a period of time. I actually had two girls that I went to university with who also played for Leeds United, so that was kind of my in there. And yeah, it was an unbelievable experience representing the club. Like having that feeling of being a supporter from a really, really young age, and just being born and bred into this household that was Leeds obsessed, and my parents still are season ticket holders now, go to every game religiously.
Awesome.
So yeah, it was a fantastic feeling just to represent the club, really.
Absolutely. And I got plenty of Leeds United supporting mates who they're absolutely loving this Mariners coaching gig going on at the moment. They're just loving every part of it. But who were your idols growing up? Who did you love to watch? Was there anyone you molded your game on, or?
Yeah, so I was a really, really massive Lucas Radebe fan. Obviously, again, he was a centre back, and he was just such a humbling person too. And I loved, how athletic he was, and how strong he was, and he was a really, really good character to look up to. So I think, yeah, growing up, he was sort of the one that I sort of looked at from a really, really young age. And I know that he had a few tough times in his growing up and stuff. So it was just really, insightful to sort of learn about someone's life like that and see what they've come through and what they've overcome to get to be a professional footballer.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so where was the cutoff where playing kind of, all right, that's not working out, I'm going into coaching? Where was that first coaching moment for you?
So it's probably once after I graduated from university, I got a full-time coaching job at a company in New Jersey. And at that point in the summer, I went to play in the WUSL over there, which is sort of a summer league, which ties into that sort of semi-professional band. Um, and I absolutely loved playing there. But I knew that the step up to the next level, I wasn't quite there, and I wasn't going to make it. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to turn all of my attention into coaching and try and take on as much coaching work as I possibly could do. And That's kind of where it really, really started to take off for me, and it became a huge passion. Spending countless hours just whether it was reading, looking at podcasts, talking to coaches, and obviously learning off some phenomenal coaches that I worked with at the company as well.
Mm.
So there was a really, really fortunate sort of 4 years because I got to work in the game 7 days a week, and I was on pitch most days for 8 to 12 hours, and you just can't replace that.
No, absolutely. I mean, we were fortunate to chat with Rolla Badawia, last week, and she talked about the game and the collegiate system, and I just don't think we even fully understand how passionate Americans are about their football.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's again, there's a reason why the Americans have led in women's football for so long, and obviously that's starting to change now. But the moment I think it was it Title V came in where they had to have in the collegiate system the same amount of money going into women's sports as they did into the men's sport.
Yeah.
That was where I think women's football really hit off, and it was that's where they took the lead because they were investing the money into the sport, and parents are then willing to sort of invest in their child's sport, knowing that they can potentially get a scholarship, which will save them hundreds of thousands of dollars later on down the line.
Exactly. And I mean, I spoke about playing heroes before. Were there any coaches that you sort of idolized or modeled your early coaching on?
Funnily enough, not really. I never actually had a female coach growing up. I only ever had males. I took things that I certainly didn't enjoy from those backgrounds. I had some really, really good coaches when I was at college. Paul Futcher, who was an ex Manchester City player. Futcher was fantastic with us girls, and I really, really enjoyed playing with him, and having Gabe as well. So they were, they had me at a really, really good time in college. But at that point, in terms of coaches, not particularly.
Yeah. And what about nowadays? Are there any coaches around now? I mean, everyone seems to throw out Ange Postecoglou, and I do because I'm a Tottenham fan. But are there any coaches around now that you look at and you think, I kind of like how they're doing this thing?
Yeah, I think the one I definitely idolise, obviously being a Leeds fan, and now having witnessed the football that can be played, and the difference that a manager can make is obviously Marcelo Bielsa. Again, such a humble man from the outside, and that's why it was. I caught up with Mike Jackson last week, and I got to sit down with him and speak about a couple of things, and it was just such a fascinating insight into what it was like, working with him, and I can only imagine that they wouldn't have got much done outside of work during that period that Bielsa was at the club. But it's just astonishing to see the difference that a manager can make in individuals. You look at Calvin Phillips now, he's a fantastic player and he always was going to do well in his career. But, you look at the money we made off him to sell him to Manchester City, that was because of Bielsa.
Absolutely. And I was saying to Mark too, and I don't know whether you share the same thought, that coaching seems to have evolved now, that it's still very technical and it's very formation driven, but there seems to be more freedom given to the players and coaches, just allowing players to express themselves. In your coaching journey, is that something that you've sort of seen coming through?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's been a massive turn of emphasis on what it is that we want to see from players, going from that sort of really, really structured. And again, some coaches still have that really structured sort of outlook. But I do think now, especially so I obviously still track the England DNA pretty closely. And they, for the last sort of 8 to 10 years, have had a really high emphasis on dominating 1v1 situations and allowing players to spend time with the ball. And I still think that's an area of weakness in Australia, is we've got an obsession in Australia with passing the ball. And I think that's got to be broken. If we genuinely want to see the next generation of players, I think that's something that's got to be broken. We've got to accept that the kids that we call the ball hogs, they're the special ones. They're the ones that we want to continue to hog the ball, as bad as it sounds, because they will learn how to pass a ball as they get older. But stripping away the individualism and the creativity and their ability on the ball, it takes away from the player, it takes away from the game, and it takes away from the future of the national team. Because you look at the national team now and it's like, yep, fantastic, we can play some great football together, but at the moment we look to Sam Kerr. What can Sam Kerr do? Argentina look to Lionel Messi.
Yeah.
They're not. Yes, there's obviously part of their DNA that creates that, but you also there's a huge part of that you grow up in your youth being allowed to do that and not being restricted constantly to 1-2 touch football.
Yeah. I think, yeah, and especially having coaches on the sideline, get rid of it, and maybe should be hang on to it and keep on going.
Yeah.
So from your journey to America, and you ended up, I think your next move was out to Sydney Uni. Would that be right? The first time around?
Yeah, so I'd been in America by that point about 8.5 years. So it'd been a long journey for me, and I think I was just ready for a change. So I went on a sort of 8-month expedition across the world to get to Australia, and my intention was to land in Australia and to sort of continue that traveling journey and explore as much of Australia as I possibly could. But when I landed in Australia on the 1st of April 2016, that day I actually met up with John Curran, who's the director of football at Sydney University, and literally the rest is history.
Yeah.
I didn't leave for the almost 6 years that I was at the club. So he's kept me grounded in Sydney ever since.
But what was the attraction? What was it that you sort of felt that you saw that was like, no, this is it?
As soon as I met John and the way that he spoke about football and the women's program there, you could see there was a clear emphasis on the women's program being a priority and not being second string to the men's, and that the women's team and sort of culture that they were building there, that was what they were into. That is what they wanted to improve, and that was where they were going to go forward as a club. And that was so refreshing to see, obviously coming out of the back of, obviously naturally coming from England, where the women are always sort of second tier to the men's, which, again, we won't delve into the history of the game, but, that's part and parcel of where the game ended. And, to come into a club with such a refreshing mindset where the women's were the premier, team, I was like, I'm in, I bit his hand off.
Yeah, no, here we are. And did that lead, after all that, then into Canberra in 2021? Would that have been around that time? Because that was more of a setup situation for you as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, so I'd actually not long, obviously, I actually had a break back and went back home to England for a year and a half. And when I got back from that, I actually snuck in just as COVID came in 2020. It was at the end of that season that I know John started speaking to Vicky Linton at the time, and Vicky came up and watched a couple of our sessions and just sort of kind of went from there, really. And I'm still so grateful to this day for the opportunity that Vicky gave me, just because it gave me an insight into the professional league and being in that environment full time. And once you sort of had a taste of it, it's something that you want more of. And it was such a great season for us. We made finals, and again, potentially you could look at it and say that we overachieved that year. But it was, a great group to be a part of, and I learned and took a lot of learnings away from that sort of period, and met some great people and worked with some really, really good players, obviously like Michelle Heyman. So it was, it was an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, and I've read a few things, and one of the quotes, and I hope I get it right, that you've mentioned before is you don't grow without challenges. Is it something that, I guess the challenge in Canberra at the time to be able to do that, is that something that you've taken from there? And I guess very, very handy when you're starting up a brand new team on the Central Coast.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, look, if I'm being honest, I think my first biggest challenge probably came just after I'd been down in Canberra, and John actually rang me to speak to me about taking on the first team job at Sydney Uni, because up until that point I'd coached every other age group underneath it up to reserve grade, but I'd not actually taken the step up to first grade, because obviously we had Alex Apakis, and then before that we had obviously had Heather Garriock. So when John rang me to speak to me about that, I just immediately turned around to him and said, no, no, I'm not ready. I need longer. I need to learn my trade in a senior space. And he said, well, I disagree. I think you're ready, and I think you should just go for it. And I said to him, can I have a couple of weeks to think about it? And I went away and thought about it. And at the time, I can honestly say I was never skeptical about what my knowledge of the game was. I was probably just more, it was diving into the unknown.
Sure.
And, like in a lot of challenges, and, as I've, faced this time, sometimes you've just got to throw yourself into it and see how you go. And if you put yourself in the deep end, you either float or you sink, don't you? And
Absolutely.
you know, it's always going to go one way or the other. And either way, I think at least you walk away with no regrets. I think when you don't take opportunities, that's when you walk away with regrets, because you always wonder what could be or what could have been. Whereas, when you take these opportunities on, you can walk away and you could have failed, but at least you know that you went into that and gave it your all.
So you talked about the challenges and kind of, am I ready? And I guess we don't know until we do it. But ultimately, Coach of the Year and championships left, right, and center. I mean, was there a moment where you went, you know what, I'm actually pretty good at this coaching gig. I think I'll stick it out.
No, no, I think and I speak to Jake about this all the time, and I know Jake's really similar to me. Every single session that you walk off the pitch, every single game that you leave, the first thing you start to think about is, what could I have done better? What needed to be better there? How do I improve that? How do I be better? And you do, and you're constantly having that like thought process. And even the game where we actually solidified the Premiership with Sydney Uni against Sydney Olympic out at Valentine's Sports Park. Even after that, I was kind of like, but we're not done yet. Like we can't be done yet. Yet we've ticked one box, but let's go and see if we can do the double. Why not? So there was never a moment where I felt established and felt, where I am is great. It's a constant fight of, okay, I need to be better. I've got to be better for the players, and I've got to be better, so I can improve them and become a better person and a better coach. And it's just something it's kind of a non-stop wheel in my head after every single session.
Yeah. So the journey is ever continuing. So when did you first find out about the Mariners? Because obviously, coaching previous to that, you turn up and the club is relatively established. There's a squad. You might want to make changes. You come to a club or approached about a club where they say, how many players have you got? We got none. You got to pick it. How did that must have been massive at the start, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when Sean got me up to the Centre of Excellence to offer me the job, I think it probably took about maybe a week to actually settle into what he'd actually said to me.
Yeah.
And I think, even now, and I'm pretty sure Will told me that him and Sean have got it on video when they told me as well. And I had no idea. I was just in my world of my own and just, on cloud nine in a sense. But, you immediately start thinking about, okay, if this is something that's going to work, what are the most important things to do? And I managed to sit down with some really, really good people like Heather, because obviously Heather had a stint at Canberra United, and obviously I'd seen her at Sydney Uni as well. So sitting down with people like Heather and getting to pick their brains and talk about like what worked for them in the A League and what didn't, and any advice, and being able to take that advice on board, and then again really just going with what you think would be the best if you had this job, and obviously I was really fortunate to have it. How would you take it from here? What do you think the most important things to put in is, and to build that foundation? So yeah, there was a heap of support from people around me, but as when you're the gaffer, the last decision and final decision always comes down to you.
Absolutely. And so when you sit down and you open up the laptop and you think, right, I've got to build a squad. Obviously, yeah, we talk about, performance and ability and all that sort of stuff. But was there a characteristic that when you picked your players, you went, they've got to have this?
Yeah, I think it's always good to have a little bit of everything. So I always refer to it as it's like a jigsaw puzzle. So you'll get part of your jigsaw, you might get your corners first. So they're the ones that that you can bring them into the team, and they'll help build the right culture. And if you've got a great culture at a team, most of the time I think you're 50% there. Like to then building on and improving throughout the next few seasons. And then mixing those types of players in with players that want to come in and they've got a bit of a point to prove, because maybe they haven't been given the opportunity, or maybe they have but not been given a full proper opportunity. So this is their second bite of the cherry, and they've learned here, and then coupled in with a little bit of experience of players that have played in the A League a while, and just trying to really get bits and bobs of everything and
Yeah.
sort of, build that jigsaw until it was complete.
Yeah. And was it a bit surreal? I'm guessing the first training session where everyone's there as the Central Coast Mariners, and it's like, wow, I guess we're going now.
Yeah, it was a really, really good feeling. I actually think, to be honest with you, the one that got me the most was our Newcastle away game, where we're in pre-season friendly, where we just played Newcastle, and there was kind of that just sigh of relief that you've put something together that's going to compete in the league this year.
Yeah.
Because you can be as confident in yourself and what you've done as much as you want, but there's always that little bit of doubt in your mind somewhere at the back of it, and it's just nice to just knock that out and just to have a little bit of a moment where you go, do you know what, we're gonna have a good year.
Absolutely.
And I think that was the moment for me. Yeah, that all this hard work had come in. All these names on a board, that is sat behind me,
Yeah.
that came to life and is coming to life. And obviously we're still a long way off from where we want to be right now, but we've also taken huge steps in the short 10 weeks that we've been together as a group.
Absolutely. And I mean, obviously you would have, I mean, heard about the club previous to coming in, but you would have seen on TV the giant sauce bottles, the palm trees, the Viking mascot walking up and down the sideline. When you actually walked onto the field as the gaffer and you physically saw it, was that a different moment for you as well? A bit different to Ellen Road, right?
Yeah, no, and for me that'll be one of the memories that stays with me forever. Obviously, gutted not to get a result out of that game. That would have been the cherry on top of the cake. But it was such a surreal feeling, just to have the entire crowd there as well, and to have such a fantastic fan base. And that was one of the biggest things that I think brought me to Central Coast is, that not just the sort of feel around the club and that family feel that you guys have, and the community base, but knowing that you do have that entire community around backing up the one club. And I experienced it to an extent at the back end of the men's season last year, and it was just to finally walk out in front of that crowd and just to see the people that come out to see the girls play. It was just something that I'm forever thankful for, and we want to continue to improve to make those fans proud and give them a good season.
Yeah, no, 100%. And as I mentioned to Roll, I mean, I was fortunate enough to be part of the Guard of Honor as the teams walked on, and I mean, I felt it on the field, the atmosphere, felt the nerves, I guess, the anticipation. And I did ask Roller about that. Do you think it was the occasion got to them a little bit at the start, because they sort of went out there and it was like, this is massive, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that was something that we spoke about at halftime. And it's something that we've, again, continued to work on behind the scenes, because, this is now becoming part and parcel of the game as it grows. Every player that stepped onto that pitch had never experienced playing in front of 5.5, almost 6,000 fans before in their lifetime, and it did, and you could see it. And
Yeah.
all of them were so tired after the first 45 minutes because they were so tense, because they hadn't relaxed. And I think it wasn't until we sort of recuperated and had a bit of a chat at half time when they actually came out and went, yeah, do you know what, it's just another game of football. That's all it is. It's that simple. We're not doing anything else other than going out and playing another game of football.
Yep.
And there's a couple of spectators there, and that's okay. And like, obviously we played the pre-season game against Wellington the week before, and I was kind of hoping that would be really, really good prep for them, and that we maybe got those pre-match nerves out of ready to raring to go in the Newcastle game. But obviously that wasn't the case. And look, these things are going to happen with the, again, brand new squad, only trained together for 8 weeks, huge crowd, huge occasion. And they'll all put a lot of pressure on themselves as individuals. Like they're such a fantastic bunch of girls. They're caring, they're kind, they're considerate. I can't speak fondly enough of every single one of them. So I think it was a really humbling experience for them, in a sense of like, yeah, wow, these people are out here to watch me. Well, I don't want to mess up, like I don't want to be that one person. And instead it kind of has that reverse sort of, psychological effect on them. and that's something that we've sort of looked to work on, and that's why we're ready and raring to go for Brisbane.
Absolutely. And I guess it doesn't help too in the lead up to the first game that poor Sarah cops an injury in a vital position on the field, kind of throws the spanner in the works, shall we say?
Yeah, definitely. And that's probably again one of the first learnings that I've had as a coach. As Mark will have done in his previous coaching roles, you take risks sometimes with your recruitment. You take risks banking on certain things, the probability of it happening. Our recruitment was set and it was in, and Sarah getting injured was not part of the recruitment process. But you know what, it'll be, we'll be much better off for it further down the line. I'm 100% confident for that. All these things happen for a reason, and Courtney was a fantastic fit to come in and take the reign, and she did incredibly well under the circumstances. She'd only trained with us for two sessions before going out into that into the Newcastle Jets game, and then obviously having to back that up with an Adelaide game. And she I can't speak highly enough of what Courtney came in and did for us, and that's something I'll be forever grateful for.
Absolutely. And we've seen on the socials that Sarah's had her op and is now in recovery, and it'd be great to see her around, and we'll get her on for a bit of a chat. Sure, I'm hoping to get her on very soon to hear about this recovery, because I'm sure she's itching to get out to be a part of.
You have no idea. The surgeon gave her the nod to sort of, when you're ready to drop your crutches, or when you're ready to drive. And Sarah's like, I'm ready now. Get this off me, get the boot off me. I want to start running. I want to start diving. And we're all like, okay, Sarah, let's slow down, take it a day at a time. But
the season is long.
So hungry.
The season is long.
It is.
And do you think too? We just talked about the atmosphere of the first game. Do you think it was probably a godsend in part that we then travelled to Adelaide, away from the coast, can regroup as a group, and then go again? Because the football we played some great football against Newcastle, but against Adelaide we really seemed to put it together a lot better. Getting away from home was probably a bit of a godsend, right?
Yeah, I do think so. I think I think either way, I think the girls felt that they needed to prove to everybody that they were capable of more than what they gave in that first game, and that was the biggest thing. And we even saw the improvement in the second half compared to the first. But I think, going away to Adelaide, it kind of gave them kind of a bit of a clean slate, because they knew that they didn't have the same, crowd pressures that they do at home. And obviously, again, it was a totally different type of game for them, which I think suited us a lot more, and gave us an ability. And I think just for the girls to go out and get their first 3 points was so great for them, just as a confidence boost across the group. Because again, like I said, they put so much pressure on themselves. And everyone's constantly striving for perfection, but perfection really doesn't exist in football. So I think for them, just having that break of going, okay, we've got our first win on the board. It then means, obviously, because we come back in at round 4 next weekend, we're not sat at the bottom of the table on 0 points after 4 rounds, even though we will have only played 2 games by that point. It means that we can come into round 4 mid-table and continue to build on that.
100%. And I know we chatted just before we started about that break, and a few weeks in between games. From your point of view, good thing, not so good thing, bit of both?
Yeah, I mean, look, if I had a choice, I'd obviously not have the international break. I'd like to roll on through. I think we got to just into a bit of a groove, but we also saw that it was coming, so it was kind of, in a sense, a bit of, that first 2 weeks was a bit of a taste, and then we can go away and have another sort of 2-week type pre-season weeks, where we go away, play a little bit more of an internal game, and then play against the boys, and then come back and hit the ground running again, and just act like Brisbane at home is our very first game of the season, but we start the first game of the season on 3 points. Right. Where obviously it would be much better if we didn't have the international breaks, and then obviously the Sydney FC game getting rescheduled. You've also got to look at the positives of these situations. It's given us an extra 2 weeks together before our third game. I think that'll be really, really invaluable for us.
Absolutely. So, and I know you spent a bit of time with the girls too. There was a few weekends away, and they sort of got to bond. That was vital, right? Into getting this squad together, they have to be, as tight off the pitch as they are on the pitch, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I can't thank the club enough for sort of getting that together, because that was something that I came in and sort of spoke to Sean about and said, look, I think this will be really, really integral to us building a good squad and trying to hit the ground running. That like the girls go away and spend time together, because the majority of them didn't know each other. So getting 3 days together where we don't actually play any football, we get in a room, we can have team meetings, we can go through our values, we can set out expectations, set our goals for the season. We can go and have a little bit of fun together. We can go and get to know each other a lot better. And we did so many activities that weekend. I think the girls came back more tired from that weekend than they did the week of pre-season afterwards.
Awesome.
But it was a really, really good few days, not just for the players but for the staff as well, to get to know the players to get to know the staff. And like I think that then allowed us to, when we got into pre-season, the girls got stuck into each other straight away, which normally the first couple of weeks of pre-season, everyone's still a little bit nice to each other. It's like, nice try. But the girls straight from day one was like, nah, that's got to be better. Come on, and they were getting into each other, which I thought that showed how valuable that time away for us really was.
Yeah. And I mean, in the squad, and you mentioned it too about getting a mix of experience and all that. You've really got to be happy too. The younger players in the team really seem to have taken to this, and they always had that enthusiasm, but they seem to have it's like a duck to water, right? They seem to be out there doing their thing as well.
Yeah, definitely. And, like I think the mix has always got to be right. Because we do, we look at younger players here and we want to develop them, but they've got to be developed in the right environment, where, you can't have too many young players in there, because they have to have somebody to look up to, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch as well. So, the younger players in this group, and we've got quite a few younger players, considerably, under the age of 20, 22.
Yep.
That have come on and done so well, and sort of taken to this and taken it in their stride. Like you look at Razzie's carried the bulk of the all the buzz around the team for nearly 6 months, and she's only just left high school, so she's done so well and showed a great show of maturity during that, and handled it really well. And you see that in everything that she does.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess to finish up for the interview, and thanks Heath for joining us, we really, really appreciate it. But at the end of the season, what has to happen for us for you to kick back and go, we've had a good year? What has to happen this season?
Oh, look, I mean, when we set our goals this year, and Kaya Simon turned around to us and just said, hey, goal's got to be to win the league, right?
So
that's what it's got to be. And I couldn't agree more. Ultimately, you don't come into the league just to do okay, just to sit at mid-table. You strive to be the best that you possibly can do, and you strive to be at the top. Because otherwise, what you're doing here. So I'm not going to say anything less than that. I'll be disappointed. But like I said, at the end of the day, if we give our very, very best effort and we do that or come close, then it'll be a successful year. But again, I think looking long term, I think probably trying to continue to build on the foundation that we have this year and keep a good bulk of the squad together for going into next year, so we can have that continuity. I think that would, for me, be a real part of the success as well.
Absolutely. And I can absolutely guarantee if we're all there grand final day, you will hear us loud and proud, I am sure. Em, thanks so much for joining us for a bit of a chat. It's been an absolute pleasure to catch up. All the best for the rest of the season. I'm sure we'll catch up again. But looking forward to the big doubleheader against Brisbane, and wish the girls all the best for us.
Thank you very much, Marty. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me on.
No worries. We'll catch up with you again soon.
Catch you soon.
Thanks, mate. And that brings us to the end of this episode of the show. A massive thank you to Emily Husband for taking time out to have a bit of a chat with us here on the show. really enjoyed talking to Em. She's just such a fantastic person to talk to, and I'm sure we will have her on the show again later in the season to talk about how the women's team is traveling. As I said in the introduction, if you've been watching on YouTube, thanks so much. It's been great seeing you too. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And if you are listening to us on any of your podcast platforms, hit that follow button. It's been really great to see the response of us being now on podcast as well. Really enjoyed getting your feedback. It's just been absolutely fantastic. So really appreciate it. That is our show. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for listening to us. Look forward to bringing you another show very, very soon. It's been the MartyMariner Show.